Passion. How many times have we heard this word? I remember as a kid feeling the weight of the societal pressure that we get on figuring out what we want to do for the rest of our lives. I remember people saying, find what you're passionate about and pursue that. And although it sounds nice, it was a lot easier said than done. On a biological level, the human brain doesn't fully develop between the ages of 25 and 28. So you're asking a human that is 18 or younger that doesn't have a fully developed brain to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life. It just seems kind of absurd. And for a lot of people, they have difficult finding what their passion is. And I want to go into a couple reasons why this might be. One is because most people just don't try enough stuff in their lifetime. Try new things, immerse yourself in new experiences, and who knows, you might just stumble upon the very thing that you love. But you'll never know if you don't get out there and get active. You have to allow yourself enough room for the stage that everyone runs into, and that is failure. You're going to fail at anything you pursue at the very beginning. What you're going to produce in the very beginning is going to be bad. As I look back on my filmmaking journey, I look at the first films I created and they are just really bad, just terrible. Something I wouldn't show. Well, I would probably show now just to show the growth in my career. And at the time I thought they were great. So I was still proud of my work, which is, I guess, a good thing. But I look back on them now and I am kind of ashamed of it. But again, that is the reality of something that you enter into as an amateur. You are going to make bad things, and that is just part of the process. And if you go into something new and you have those expectations, not saying you're trying to make bad things, but allowing yourself the grace to say, okay, I made this bad, but this is what I can work on in the future. If you never allow yourself for failure, then chances are you're never going to grow in your career. Now, the second reason is why I'm really making this video. Perhaps we have completely misinterpreted the meaning of passion. Now, this is how most of us define passion, and it's straight out of Merriam-Webster's dictionary. A strong feeling of enthusiasm or excitement either for something or about doing something. What if this definition is wrong? I think that would explain a lot of the reason why most people can't find their passion. So lately I've been growing in my faith as a Christian, and I read the Bible a lot. But the English version that I have is not the original text. It is a translation, and there are many different translations in the English language. And this is important because the original text of the Bible was Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And oftentimes scholars, when they are breaking down scripture and interpreting the meaning of scripture, they often refer back to the original translation that were in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And this is important because there can be misinterpretation with languages and translation. And this is important to know for this video because we're talking about passion. And in Western culture, at least, passion has been deemed something to go after, something to pursue, something positive. But if you look at the original root of the word passion, it derives from the Latin word pati, which means to suffer. So this is what I mean when we might have completely misinterpreted the meaning of passion. Not once when someone asked me what I'm passionate about did I think, what am I willing to suffer for? And here lies the problem. Most people say they're passionate about what they're mildly interested in, like coffee or politics or activism. Reposting something on social media does not mean you're passionate about it. Passion requires patience. And this is important to know because we see a lot of people diving into a career or building a personal brand or saying they're very passionate about these things when it's not really their passion. They're just interested in it. Interest can last a long time, you know? Interest can go for a couple years. And if you have built a whole career or have built a personal brand over an interest, then you're probably not willing to suffer for it when you're not interested in it again. And then it becomes a hassle to pursue that. And we see this in the workforce all the time. We see people bouncing job to job because they don't like what they do all the time. And this is a food for thought that you're never going to like what you do all the time, no matter what you pursue. There's always going to be some mundane task or some administrative work that you're going to have to do to get the desired outcome. I can think of a bunch of things as a filmmaker that I don't necessarily enjoy doing. I'd rather be doing other things. Video editing, you know, I'm pretty good at it, but I just don't think it is the best use of time for me. I'd rather focus my attention on something else. And the more time that I have to spend on video editing, the more time I can't do something that I actually enjoy doing. But I do it anyway because I'm passionate about making films. I'm passionate about the effects that a film can have on someone. I keep doing it because I have a vision and I have a goal, and there is something very liberating about seeing it through to the end. So it is important to know that passion requires patience, and cultivating passion requires time, because you never know when your interests are going to change. I think when we hear the word passion, we all want to have just this lightning bolt of inspiration hit us and automatically we figure out what our passion is. But that is rarely the case. I think before you can even discover what your passion is, I think you need to understand what you're curious about or what you're interested in. And I think the passion comes at the intersection of multiple curiosities or interest. I got this idea from Steven Kotler. He is the founder of the Flow Research Institute. If you don't know what flow is, it is essentially an optimal state of consciousness. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi was the originator of the term flow. If you haven't read that book, Flow, by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, you should definitely read it. It's one of those life-changing books. Steven Kotler gives the great advice of writing out 20 to 25 of your curiosities or interest. Like, write it on paper. And if you find any similarities within those curiosities or intersections between those curiosities, you might be onto something. It's also important to acknowledge that waiting for passion for you to do something is a recipe for disaster. Passion follows action. You realize you're passionate about something while you're doing it or after you had already done it. If you're waiting for passion before you step into anything, you're going to be waiting for a very long time. Think about a romantic relationship. You don't have passion in the relationship before you meet the person. You develop passion as you get to know the person. The same is for developing passion for your work or career. When I think of the word passion, I also think of passion of Christ. When I think about this, again, the original root of the word passion is to suffer. And I think of the passion of Christ. When I think of that, I think of sacrifice. How Jesus sacrificed his life for all of us as sinners. Could passion mean sacrifice for others? Could passion mean providing value for other people? And it makes me think of a lot of people, a lot of successful people who have gotten to the end of careers or have reached a certain status or certain level of success where they're not really interested in acquiring anything else for themselves, but they find the most fulfillment in giving to others and providing value for others. And that becomes their new passion and purpose. So when you're considering your passion, also take into account other people. How can you serve other people? How can you provide value to other people? So it's important to understand the neuroscience or neurochemistry that is happening in your brain. And you might ask, why is this important? Well, it's important to understand how to cultivate passion. So it's one thing to know the real meaning of passion, but it's another thing to figure out how to cultivate passion. So we briefly touched on one way to do it is to write out a list of your curiosities and see where the overlap is in those curiosities. But while you're doing this, a very human phenomenon is happening. Pattern recognition. Every time your brain recognizes a pattern, or every time one of your curiosities overlaps another one of your curiosities, you get a hit of a neurochemical called dopamine. Most of us know dopamine as the feel-good chemical, but it is so much more than that. And with that hit of dopamine, you get a little more motivation to connect more ideas. So there is a feedback loop. So when cultivating your passions, there needs to be periods of study. Take the overlapping of all your interests and curiosities and go learn about them. Go read books or go listen to podcasts or go buy courses. People highly underestimate the value of reading, I think especially the younger generation, because they grew up in a digital era. But reading books is essentially taking someone's entire life experience, bringing it down into 200 pages a week of reading for $12 to $20. And if you just read daily, I think you could probably be smarter than the average person. And this is a daily practice. This isn't just like a one-time thing or a one-week thing. This is a lifetime habit. This is a lifetime thing. And a lot of the things that people get wrong about creativity or being creative is people aren't born geniuses. Let's just say that. People aren't born geniuses. Any genius, like an Albert Einstein or an Elon Musk, they have mastered their domains that they are in. They fully understand the knowledge that you need to know to excel in that career. It's not like Elon Musk was just born a aerospace genius. No, he had to learn about that. He had to learn the information. He had to pick up the textbook and read that information to really understand it and really master the domain. You're not just going to be a creative genius. That isn't a real thing. Yes, everyone is born creative, but that creativity is living dormant inside of you until you cultivate it. It is there for you to develop it. You need to constantly be filling your mind with information so you can then pull from to create something with. But if nothing's in your head, you can't pull from anything to create with. You can't write that story unless you have seen or read hundreds or thousands of stories first. You have to have something to pick from. It's not just going to come out of thin air. So when you're developing your passion, you need to constantly, and I can't say this enough, constantly, daily, fill your mind with information. Fill it daily in small amounts so your mind can chew on it and your subconscious can go to work. Your subconscious mind is a lot more powerful than your conscious mind. So your conscious mind can process about 40 to 50 bits of information per second. Your subconscious mind can process about 11 million bits of information per second. So when we are trying to discover our passion, we need to be filling our minds with information daily and let our subconscious mind sit and kind of chew on that information while we sleep, while we rest, while we take our mind off the problem. Your subconscious mind is always working in the background, whether you realize it or not. And when you come back to learn new information, your subconscious mind has had time to chew on that information and is now ready to accept new information and link that information to new information you are learning. Well, another powerful tool in developing your passion is once you have studied and once you have learned and once you have taken in information and then did the feedback loop of receiving the dopamine, which reinforces the ability to learn more, go out and talk about it to other people, because another neurochemical gets activated once you get positive feedback from other people. And this neurochemical is called oxytocin. And this neurochemical produces the feelings of love and trust that every human needs for survival. So the mix between dopamine and oxytocin is a very powerful combination to reinforce your passion. And this isn't me just making up words, or this is why I say it's very important to understand the neuroscience or the neurochemistry, because this is scientific facts of how your brain works. So if you know how your brain works, you have an advantage. You can reverse engineer how to find your passion. It is much easier to learn when your biology is doing the heavy lifting for you. It's not a struggle to really sit there and read a book or listen to a podcast that you're not interested in. It's not hard to do that. You want to do it because you're very curious about it. You're very interested about it. No one's forcing you to do it. So as a creative, passion is a necessary ingredient for not only meaningful work, but a meaningful life. Good questions to ask yourself are, what are you willing to go through? What are you willing to suffer for to get the desired outcome? It's important to remember not to misidentify your interest with your passions, because again, you can create a whole company or a whole brand over your interests only to realize 2 to 5 years down the line that you're not actually passionate about it. It was just a phase. And that scares me personally. So it's important to understand that cultivating passion takes time, and passion requires patience, and passion requires learning. So if you're not a lifelong learner, then chances are you're never really going to truly develop your passion. Passion is an ingredient to the creative process. So hope this video was helpful and I provided some value, but I hope you take the time to discover what you're truly passionate about. If you like what you saw, then please subscribe, and until next time, love you guys.